Well, greetings, mathletes, and welcome back. Today we're going to take our first real sojourn into compass and straight edge constructions. Now, today what we're going to be doing is laying down the foundation. There's certain things you need to be able to do with a compass and a straight edge, basically to be able to do any other construction. So the things that we're going to be doing, we're going to be able to copy a line segment. So create a line segment that's exactly the same size as another line segment. We're going to learn how to copy an angle. We're going to learn how to bisect an angle. So if you have an angle, find a ray that goes through that angle that cuts it into two equal angles. And we'll learn how to bisect a line segment. So take a line segment and cut it into two pieces. We're going to take those things and we're going to talk about copying a triangle. Now, there's more than one way to copy a triangle, and they actually have to do with with all of the congruence theorems that we have. For example, you've heard side angle side as a congruence theorem. These two triangles are congruent by side angle side. Well, it turns out that if you use a compass and straight edge to copy a side, another side, and the angle between them, you've copied enough information to make the triangle. So, and you notice what I just said. You copy two sides, so that's copying two line segments, and then copying an angle. So those are the things that we're going to be doing. And again, this is just for laying the foundations right now. You will need your compass and straight edge. A straight edge can be anything with just a hard surface that you can draw a straight line with. But the compass needs to be one of these or one of these. Basically, the difference between these two is price. This one I got for $2 at Save Mart. This one I think I paid somewhere between $40 and $50, and this is a professional version. So, and there's everything in between. You can get a pretty good metal one that has the screw. What this screw does is this changes how far apart the points are, and you know it won't. Once you let go of that screw, it's not going to change at all. That doesn't move. This one, you just force it to move, and then it's a little bit stiff, so it doesn't move again. So these wear out real fast. But if all you need is to get through this class, then $2 is all you need. This works just fine until it wears out. So let's go ahead and get started and see what we have here. So we're going to be operating using this document cam here, and I got all my stuff here. We're not actually going to be using the protractor as a protractor. We're going to be using it as a straight edge. It's just a little bit shorter, and so it won't bump into these things like it will when I use a regular ruler. Okay, so the first thing we want to be able to do is to copy a line segment. Now, I did not put this one. Let's see how this looks. That might be a little bit better to look at. Okay, it doesn't have the glare this way. Now, if I have a line segment, and I'm just going to draw some random line segment here, I'm going to give it clear endpoints, right? So I have a line segment. Let's say I want another copy of that line segment. So I need another line segment that's the same length. So this is the original, right? And this will be our copy here. So the copy goes like this. Basically, you make a line that's too big, right? Okay, so now we have a line segment that's too big. I'm going to put a point at one end, and then I'm going to take my compass, and I'm going to use this to measure. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put one point of the compass on the first point here, and I'm going to spread this out. Oops, that's the wrong way. There we go. I'm going to spread this out so that the other point can be put down exactly on that point there, right? So I'm a little bit bigger, and I actually like to make a little stroke through here just to make sure that it's passing through the point. Okay, so once we've done that, we basically come over to this one and get the sharp end on the first point that we've marked, and then we just cut off the segment. And so the distance from here to here is exactly the same as the distance from here to here. And you notice what the compass actually did. Basically, what it did is it marked a distance. That's all it does. Your straight edge does nothing but make straight lines, and your compass does nothing except mark distances. That's it. And we construct all of these things all those things I had talked about, angle bisectors, copying angles, all of that stuff is just by measuring a distance and drawing a straight line. That's it. I just find that absolutely fascinating. Okay, so that one's pretty straightforward. That is the most basic construction that you can do with a compass and straight edge, is to just copy a segment. Okay. Now, if you look at the worksheet that I gave you, there it is. That's what I was looking for. You have some things on here. So you have, yeah. Right, we have where we're asked to copy an angle, and that's one of the things that we need to know how to do. And we need to know how to bisect an angle. And so we're gonna talk about doing both of those things here. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna work out the first one here, right? And I'm gonna give you some tips. And then I'm gonna let you work on the other two, and we'll do these one at a time. Okay, we'll walk through these one at a time. So these are going to be your examples to work on after you see the first one, and then I will go ahead and bisect both of these, or copy both of these, after you've worked on them. Okay, so there's certain things that do help you out when it comes to this. One, you notice how small that angle is, and so if I'm going to start copying distances here, I actually have to make my compass pretty small. So one of the things that you can do, if the sides aren't very big, extend them, right? Because it's just the angle you want to deal with. So you want to just take and extend these angles extend these sides so that you have enough room to copy the angle. Okay, and I'm going to copy the angle onto this blank piece of paper here. Okay, so, and no, it has nothing to do with tracing paper. Okay, so first off, what I want to do here is draw a line. And this is just going to be one side of my angle. Okay, so this is going to be the first side of my angle. And then we need to decide a point where the angle is going to be at. So you could choose the end point here, right? You could also put a point farther in. Sometimes it's nice to put a point farther in, because this piece over here ends up being useful later. So I'm just going to, ooh, that's not a very good point. It's too big. Let me do this again. Okay, so I'm just going to mark a point here. Okay, now we need to copy this angle. So here's how this proceeds. And then we'll talk about why it works. So you want to open your compass big enough so that you can make a stroke and it clearly hits both sides of this angle. Okay, so I'm just going to make a stroke, and you notice it's crossed the sides of this angle in two different places. Okay, now I'm going to make the same mark without changing the compass spacing at this point that I'm trying to make the angle at. You know what? I need a little more room. Didn't quite judge that right. Let's do it down here. Okay. So, in any case, I still haven't moved the compass. So I just want to show you. This is what we did. We went ahead and we found this distance here. Okay. And we just marked it. And then the same distance over here. Okay, so those are all the points that are the same distance as this, right? Now, what we're going to do, and this is actually how this is working. What I'm actually doing, what I actually just did was I created a triangle. Here's the other side of that triangle, right? It's that piece right there. And so if I know how long this piece is, and I draw that in here, right? And I draw that length in here, that's going to tell me where to draw this, because where this length crosses this circle is where that where that particular that side of the angle is going to go. So now what we do is we measure the length of this other side that we just created. Okay, so, and you notice those two circles cross at a very specific place, and that's exactly where the angle goes through, right? I've already measured one of the arcs. Now I just measured the second one, and I'm going to put that arc on here as well. And so this point right here, where those two things cross, is the point that that other side of the angle has to go through to copy the angle. So now I'm going to give you some style tips here. And we can actually put these next to each other. You can see that these are the same angle, right? I just copied that angle exactly. Okay, so here's some style tips. You might have noticed I've used a couple of them as we've gone. When I'm drawing a line, and it's very specific where the points need to be, I make a point of putting the pencil down, or pen in my case, and then putting the straight edge up against it, holding it where I think it goes, and then checking to make sure that I'm on the point on the other spot too, because sometimes you're a little bit off. So you want to check the position of the pencil in both spots before you draw it. Okay, so that's one thing that helps. The other thing that helps, and you can't tell this, but I have multiple sheets of paper here, right? A compass has a very sharp point on it. I've put several sheets of paper down so that it has something to stab. I have a piece of wood underneath that, and the only thing about using the piece of wood, because the compass will stab that too, but then I'll end up with a bunch of pock marks in my wood. So it's nice to have a few sheets of paper underneath. The other thing has to do with using the compass itself. Some people like to hold the compass straight up and down and then try to use it. And it does work, but what ends up happening is the compass starts to walk. It starts to do, you can't really see it like this, but it starts to do like walky things if you hold it too straight up and down. I don't know if I can make it do that or not, right? You end up rocking on one point and then rocking on the other. So what you want to do is make sure you're leaning on the point when you do this. In fact, maybe it'd be better if I do it this way. Let's move that, and maybe I can do it this way. There we go. Okay, so when you do this, you don't want to hold the compass straight up and down. What you want to do is give it a little lean, and you just kind of drag it around when you do this. Oop. Yeah, you usually don't end up making a full circle either, but you want to get in a position where the point that marks the center of your circle won't jump out of place, right? And that it takes a little practice. All right, so let's go back to this now. Okay, so in any case, let me walk through those steps again, just so we can see it. So the first thing I did is I opened the compass, and it's basically a random distance, but you want it to be fairly large, because the bigger, the more open the compass is, the more accurate the copy is going to be. But then you make an arc, and it cuts through two sides of this. It'll cut through two sides of this angle, right? And then you make the same arc over here on your line. Okay, once you make that arc, you come over here and you measure the distance between the two intersections of the sides of the line over here, and then you mark that distance here, right? And that's where this second mark came from here. Okay, so that's how you copy an angle. So what I want you to do now is you have two more angles to copy. You have this one and you have this one. So let's see if you can copy them. So go ahead and pause it here and see what you can do. Okay, so I'm assuming you've worked on it at this point. So let's go ahead and copy this. In fact, I think we can probably do this on here. Maybe I can do this. What if I did that? Nope, that's upside down. Let's rotate it two more times. There we go. Right, 290-degree rotations is 180 degrees. So there you have it. Okay, so we're going to copy this angle now. So what we need to do we're going to need, there it is. We're going to need a straight line. I'm going to go ahead and just do it on this piece of paper this time. So we're going to need a straight line to start with, right? And, you know, this looks like a right angle, but we have no idea if it actually is or not. And then let's go ahead and extend these sides a little bit so that we can copy them better. Do that. And that. So now we have a bigger angle. And now we just need to make our initial arc. Maybe not quite so big. Actually, let's do this. We'll go down to this one. Right? This one's a little tougher to use because it runs the possibility of the pencil changing, but you'll see it still works just fine. The only thing is it bends a little bit, so you have to be careful how you drag it. Okay, so we got the first arc, and I'm going to make the same arc here. Well, let me mark a point first. All right. So I'll go ahead and make that same arc here. Aye. We're starting to see some of the differences. Right, you have to make sure it's big enough so you can measure this. Okay, that goes to the right spot, and boom. Okay, so once we have that, that should be our second point. And let's see if we have truly copied this thing. So we got here, here, and here. There we go. All right, so we've just copied an angle. And like I said, that may or may not be a right angle, but we've just copied it nonetheless. Okay, and then the last one here, and I'm going to switch back to my compass because, well, I like this one better. Let's see here. That's the side I want. So I'm going to lengthen this and this just in case. All right. So let's go ahead and copy this angle now. So we need a line segment. All right. And then we need our arc. So we're going to make an arc here all the way down to here, like so. And then I have to do the same thing here. So I'll need a point. Oh, that's going to be pretty wide. Let's find out how far we can go with this here. Yikes. All right. This one's definitely getting messier. All right, almost there. Let's make sure we got it. Nope, still a little shy. There we go. That's what we want. Okay, so now we just need to make the same mark here. Oh, that's way over here. Yeah, I probably was wiser doing this on the other paper before, but that should be there. Make sure I mark it, otherwise I'll lose it. It's so messy in there. Okay, and so now this angle should be the same as this angle, right? The way we just constructed that. It might be a little bit off, and that more has to do with the mess, I think. But yeah, so that's the idea, right? You want to measure a distance on the original angle, measure the same distance with your line segment, and then you're measuring the distance between the intersections. All right. So let's go ahead and take a look at the next thing here. Now, the next thing we want to do is to be able to copy an angle. And speaking of angles, there we go. Let's switch that back here. Okay, so let's just make an angle. All right, just any old angle. Pick your favorite angle and make it. Okay, so we have our favorite angle right here. Let's suppose we need to copy this. Now, with the angles on your paper, you probably want to extend the sides a bit, right? Just so you have enough room here. I can draw this. I can draw these as big as I want, just because. But it's to bisect an angle. I think I said copy an angle. We already did copying an angle. To bisect an angle, it starts in a very similar fashion, right? You want to open your compass sufficiently so that you're, an inch or two from the vertex of this angle. And what you're going to do is you are going to make a stroke through both sides without changing the compass radius. Okay, so you have that. Now, what we're going to do next is make two more compass strikes. We're going to come across here. Notice I haven't changed the compass yet. You actually can for the second part of this, but it's better if you don't. Right? So we have a crossing there. Now, what I've just done, because I'm using the compass, right? I'm using the compass here to measure the distance. So the distances between these intersections are all the same. So the distance between here and here, or excuse me, the side lengths here are both the same because they're marked out of the same compass stroke. These two over here are also marked out of the same compass stroke. And so what that means is that the distance from here to here is the same as the distance from here to here. So what we've actually done is made a rhombus. And if I draw from the vertex right here up to the other side, up to the other point, and through it, I have just bisected this angle. And here's why it's bisected. If I go ahead and fill in these other sides, right, if I draw this in and draw this in, maybe I should have used a different color, but right, what I have there is a rhombus. And because this side, this side, this side, and this side are all the same. This bisector is actually the diagonal of this rhombus. And rhombuses or rhombi have the property that their diagonal bisects the angle. So basically what I did was I created a rhombus and forced this angle to be bisected by its diagonal. So you actually don't need to put these two sides down. You don't have to draw those in. I just drew those in so we can see what was actually going on. So if I'm going to bisect another angle, let's go ahead and pick another one here. How about this angle right here? Right? Let's say I want to bisect this angle. Well, same thing. Nothing really changes. I'm going to mark an equal distance on both sides of this. You actually don't have to continue the whole arc. You can just mark it right here and then come back down and mark it here again. And we want to make sure that, let's see, we'll go through there and then we'll see if we can cut through here too. And as long as these two lines cross, your compass was open enough. You do run the risk if you make your compass stroke, your initial compass stroke too small, that the two ends won't grab each other. So now that I've done that, I have the intersection there. And I just need to draw the bisector. And it's actually for the exact same reason. This angle is equal to this angle now. Right? And so that's all you have to really do. So what I want you to do is see, because it's 3 compass strokes to bisect an angle, right? And that's actually one of the games that mathematicians like to play too, is how few compass strokes can you do to do a construction. So you have a few angles here to play with. So let's just see if you can bisect them. I think this one's the most interesting one, right? So take a moment and see what you can get. And when I say take a moment, I mean go ahead and pause it. Okay, so assuming you've gone ahead with these constructions here, let's go ahead and do this. So we need to extend these sides first, just so we can get a good bisection. The longer the sides are, the better you do as far as bisecting it. The more accurate your result anyhow. So let's see what we got here. Let's go ahead. I'm going to make this compass a little smaller since we're dealing with a little smaller angle here. So we'll get that on there. Yeah. And we'll make our compass stroke through these guys. Okay. And then we do the same compass stroke here, right? And then from here, wait, did I do that right? Yeah, I did. Okay. Sometimes it's a little tricky to get it to line up just perfect, right? So now we have that cross. That's what we need. That's what our bisector is going to go through. There we go. Right, so there's a bisector. And then we should be able to do the same thing here. We'll go ahead and extend these sides a little. It takes practice to make these lines and strokes precisely. So, don't feel absolutely free to practice this. And just so you guys know, this is actually part of the grammar school curriculum as well. This is in the K-12 curriculum. So this is something you guys are going to have to teach at some point. Okay. So we'll go ahead, same thing. We want our compass stroke here, and then we're going to see if we can get some things to cross out here. And boom, good. We got them to cross. There we have it. And we just need to bisect this. Okay. That's where I want it. So there. So now we have bisected that angle. Okay, so now if we look at these last two here, we can do the exact same thing. This one looks big enough. Yeah, I think we can cross both sides there. And then let's see here, we'll make a cross here, and then we'll go ahead and make a cross here. Ooh, just barely made that. Well, you got to make sure that's big enough so they cross. All right. So, and this one. Right? So now we've bisected that one. You notice it's the same compass strokes every time. You make an arc through it, and then where the arc intersects the angles, you make arcs from each of those points, and where those cross is where you get your angle bisector. Now this one's a little more interesting, isn't it? Because it's a straight angle. It's 180 degrees. And what's interesting about that is if we bisect 180 degrees, we are making a right angle. And so this is actually a way to make a right angle. So if you need a right angle, if you want it to be at this point, which we do because we're calling this a straight angle, let's make sure we're going to have to make that a little bit smaller. There we go. Right? We'll go ahead and make our marks here and here, just like we did with the other angles. Right? However, if I reach back, I'm going to be hitting this, aren't I? I don't really have a point. I have the midpoint, but I don't have a way to draw that perpendicular. So what you end up having to do is, if it doesn't reach, you make it bigger, right? Make it bigger so it does reach. You still want to start with these 2 points. So what you're going to do is this and this. Oops, my compass jumped there. So notice once I made my initial arc, I had to open my compass up, and this is exclusively because this is a straight angle, right? This has to do with the triangle inequality. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to line up this point with this point. If I've done this correctly, it should also go through right here. Right? So that's actually the test that I've done it correctly. If it goes through the point I had marked, then I know I did it correctly. So let's go ahead and line this guy up. And it does. So that means I did it correctly. And I've just cut this line in half. As a matter of fact, that leads us directly into how to make an angle, or how to make a segment bisector. So we've bisected angles. Now we need to bisect line segments. And we actually just did that. So there you go. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at the next thing here. Pull this. Hey, let go. There we go. Okay, so let's say, and actually, let me rotate this picture that way. There we go. That's better. Okay, so let's say you're just walking down the street minding your own business, and I know this guy seems to do this a lot, but let's say someone jumps out from behind a dumpster, hands you a line segment, and asks you to bisect it. Well, realizing that he has a gun and this will probably save your life, you go ahead and bisect it. So here's how it works. It's very similar to the way we just bisected that straight angle, right? The difference is we don't have to do the initial scribing because we already know the endpoints. What we want this to be is in the middle, right? We want this to bisect the side and the angle. Since we want it in the middle, what I can do is just, you want to make sure you open your compass past the middle, so it's clearly past the middle, and you're going to make a stroke, right? And then you're going to make the same stroke without changing your compass from the other point, from the other end point. Okay, so what that means is that the distance from any point on this circle to this end point is the same distance. So whether I draw it from here to here, or from here to here, or from here to here, it's always the same distance. The same thing is true on this side. So this point where they cross is that radius away from this side. I should probably use a straight edge. And the same radius again away from this side. And what we've done is we've made an isosceles triangle. In fact, we've made two, because if I look down here at the other one, I have that point. So once again, I've made a rhombus, is really what I've done. And if I connect the diagonals of a rhombus, it turns out that they bisect each other. And so that's one of those things that not only is it a bisector, but it's a perpendicular bisector, right? So you made a right angle and you've cut the line in half. It turns out I'm wearing the right shirt today. I don't know if you guys noticed it, but I got my rhombus shirt on. So there we have it. Pretty good stuff there. Okay, so what I want you to do, you have this, right? See if you can bisect these segments, right? These are the segments that we're going after. So see if you can bisect them, and then we'll walk through it together. So go ahead and pause this for a moment, and then we'll take a look at it together. Okay? Okay, so let's go ahead and bisect these segments. So again, we don't need the initial scribe on this thing, right? We just need something open enough so that it's more than half. Oops, I think I'm opening it more. Right? There we go. And so I'm going to go ahead and make my first scribe from one end point, and then I'll make my second strike from the second end point. And then I just want to connect those two intersection points. So I got that, and I just need to draw it. And there you have it. Oh, I missed that. Well, that's okay. It's close enough. You get the idea. Right? So now this one is now bisected. Now, you don't have to draw the full arc, right? All you actually need is to draw enough so you get these intersections. That's really all you have to have. So that's how I'm going to do the next one. The next one's much smaller, but we can still do it. So I'm just going to go like that, and then like that. And then we'll do it from this side, that, and that. And so those intersection points should be my bisection. Right? So there's a perpendicular bisector there. And then we have our last one here. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. Oop, what did I click? Okay, we're good. All right, so we'll go from there and from there, then there, and ooh, barely caught that one. There and there. All right, so we have an intersection there, and we just need to connect those guys, connect the dots. It's like Pee Wee Herman used to say, right? And so now we have a bunch of perpendicular bisectors. These are the basic constructions. So these are the things that we're going to do all the other constructions out of. Okay. Now, copying the triangles. Now, this is actually what the next lecture is going to be about. Copying the triangles. There's a number of ways to do it. The way I'm going to kind of leave this is it's just showing you a couple of ways that you can do it. And but I don't know, how do I want to say this? This is one of those things that if had we been in person in class, I would probably give you these things and then ask you to try them and then walk around the class and see what people came up with and then summarize everything on the board, because the likelihood is that someone in the class will, between everyone in the class, we will have covered all the different ways that you can copy a triangle. So but we can't do that right now. So I just want to talk about some basic ways to do this. So I'm going to pull this sheet off of here this time. Let's go ahead and pull this off. And I really just want the triangles at this point, because if we're copying triangles, so I'm going to shorten this down here. If we're copying triangles, there's different ways to do it. I don't know. I'm having trouble here because I hate giving away the puzzle, but that's kind of what we're going to have to do. So let's just say I want to copy this triangle to start out with. So here's one way to do this. I'm going to start by drawing a side, right? I don't know how long the side's going to be, but I'm just going to draw one. Okay. Now, let's say I'm going to go ahead and label these so we can keep our orientation. Oh, let's turn it this way. I just realized I did that. Okay, so let's do this. There. Now we have the proper orientation. Okay, so I'm going to mark a second point. I'm going to call it A prime. Now the prime just means that it's, look, this corresponds to A, but it's not A. It's a different triangle. Okay, and then we need to create a B prime, and then from that we'll create a C prime, and then that triangle should be the same as the first triangle. Okay, so I'm just going to do this by copying segments. So I want to open this up. Oops, let's open it to the size of AB. Right, so I want to get this thing open to AB. Nope, not quite big enough. There we go. You want to make the compass stroke when you're checking to see if you have the right distance, because sometimes it looks like it's on the point, but what's going to make the line is actually not on the point. Okay, so then we'll do the same thing here. Now that distance there is the same as the distance from A to B, so now this is B prime. Okay, so we have a side that matches. Now, we have two other sides here. We can get their lengths, and we know their lengths are such so that this point here is this distance from A, and this point here is this distance from B. So if we copy both of those distances and look for their intersection, that should be the last spot. That should be the last point. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to measure the distance to point C. Make sure I have that distance correct. Yep, it's going right through there. So we will mark that distance. And then I'm going to measure the distance from B to C. So I'm going to go ahead and open that up. Not quite. There we go. Right? And now I just need to measure this distance. And this point right here because we copied the distance from A and then we copied the distance from B, should be exactly where C is. So I'm going to call this point C prime, and we just need to connect the dots now. There we go. And there we go. And if I look at the two triangles, they really look very, very close. Right? There's probably a slight difference because none of these are perfect, but we have just copied this triangle. And notice what we copied. We copied the three sides. So I know these triangles are the same because the sides are the same. Right? That gives us side, side, side congruence. And we'll talk more about what those things actually mean later. But the corresponding sides are all congruent, so that means the triangles are congruent, which is kind of fun. Okay, so now I want to copy this triangle, right? Let's see if we can copy it. So again, I'm going to give it a label. I'm going to give them A, B, C. And this is just, the reason I'm labeling them is more about bookkeeping, so I can remember which point goes with which one, because you could start and then get your sides mixed up. If your paper turns or something, right? It could happen real easy. So you want to have these things marked. It's just good bookkeeping is all it is. Okay, so I'm going to start with the side AB. So I'm going to start by marking the distance AB. So here's the side length, and I'm going to call this point A prime. And I need to measure out B now. So that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to measure B from A. Now we're going to use a slightly different congruence this time. Okay, so I have a side. That's what I have right now. This is my B prime. What I'm going to do instead this time, instead of copying all three sides, which honestly, that's probably the fewest compass strokes is copying the sides. I'm going to copy, I've already copied this side. I'm going to copy this angle now and put this angle here. So let's go ahead and copy that angle. So we're going to have to shorten that a little bit. There we go. So we want to cross both sides. Okay, and then we need to measure the distance across here. Oops. That's what happens when one of your papers isn't clamped down. I'm not making compass strokes with this one, so it won't be as bad. There we go. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy. Oh, I copied the wrong side. You see? You see what happens? I just work here, guys. Okay, anyway, sorry. I need to, these intersection points is what I need to measure the distance of. Come on, fingers. There we go. There we go. And so now I put this here. I'm going to measure that there. And so there's my intersection point. And so I'm going to draw my line there. Okay, so we have this side here. What I need to figure out now is how far down this angle C prime is. Right, so now I'm going to copy the distance from A to C. There we go. And so I copy this distance now. And there's my third point. This is my C prime. And notice what I copied to get this. To copy this triangle and make a triangle that's exactly the same, I copied a side, I copied the angle, and then I copied another side. So this is our side angle side congruence. All I have to do now is connect C prime to B prime, Everything else is determined once you have a side or two sides and the angle between them. And so this is how the triangle congruence actually works. What you're trying to do is figure out the minimum amount of things that it takes to determine that you have the same triangle as another triangle. And so working it out through constructions, you actually have to make the things. And so I think this helps a great deal. I think understanding side, 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 and side angle congruence, and actually any of the other congruences we're going to talk about, is very, very useful. Or I should say, constructions are very, very useful to view those things because basically you get your hands dirty and you get to see exactly what it takes to put these things together. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to let you guys work on this on your own. I'm not even going to cover this last one because we've gone through several things here. And again, you notice everything comes from copying distances and copying angles. And even copying angles and bisecting angles has to do with copying distances. So everything you do with a compass and straight edge has to do with copying a distance and drawing a straight line. And we get most of geometry out of that. And I just find that absolutely fascinating. Okay. So we're at the end of we're at the end of the beginning of our journey, I suppose. So practice these, and I would very strongly encourage you to just make up your own problems. It's not very hard to draw a triangle and then try to copy it. You'll get to see what some of the sticking points are, like if you make your triangle too small, or just things like that. So experience is really what you need when it comes to compass and straight edge, because a lot of it's even it's a coordination thing too. You have to be able to use the compass correctly without it walking all over the page. So all of it takes practice. And so I encourage you very much to do so. Even print out another copy of the worksheet and just see if you can go through it again, just so you can get used to the strokes you need to use. All right. So that is the end of the beginning of our journey, and I will see you guys next time. So until next time, keep your pencils and your wits sharp.